It started with a name, Rymir Satterthwaite, a name most people had never heard of. But the second it got linked to Jay-Z, everything changed. Suddenly blogs were buzzing, TikToks were dissecting timelines, and conspiracy threads lit up like wildfire. Not because Rymir was famous, but because of what he claimed, that he was Jay-Z's secret son. Now, let's get one thing straight. This isn't some wild rumor from last week. Rymir's been saying this for over a decade. Way back in 2010, he first filed paperwork claiming that his late mother, Wanda, had a brief relationship with Jay-Z in the early 90s, before the fame, before Beyonce, before the billionaire empire. According to Rymir, his mom didn't just hint at it. She told him flat out that Jay-Z was his biological father. The court, though, they didn't exactly welcome the claim with open arms. Time after time, his lawsuits were thrown out, either due to lack of evidence, legal technicalities, or this one pesky 1994 paternity declaration naming another man, Robert Graves, as Rymir's dad. But Rymir never bought it. He said Graves wasn't his real father, and he's been fighting to get a DNA test with Jay-Z ever since. And here's where it gets messier. This wasn't just a back and forth in family court. Rymir's legal war dragged across multiple states, dozens of judges, and more than a few viral headlines. He claimed he wasn't after money, just the truth. But people started wondering, if that's all he wanted, why keep filing lawsuits? Why keep going public? Then came the nuclear moment, a federal lawsuit. That's right, Rymir took it up a notch and went straight to the big leagues, dragging Jay-Z's name into a federal court. The lawsuit made waves, but even bigger waves came when he suddenly dropped it in July 2025. Just like that, after 15 years of battling the system, Rymir hit pause. People were stunned. Was this a surrender? Was he giving up? Or was something else going on? According to Rymir, this wasn't quitting, this was strategy. He claimed the courts had been compromised, that he wasn't playing on a level field. He pointed to a 2022 injunction that barred him from filing any more lawsuits against Jay-Z without court approval. The court had basically slammed the door in his face, and he said it happened without warning. No notice, no hearing, no chance to defend himself, just silence, then legal lockdown. That's when the gloves came off. Rymir accused Jay-Z's legal team of manipulating the system, blocking his every move, and even offering hush money. Yep, he claims people from Jay-Z's circle tried to pay him to walk away, but he says he refused every time. Why? Because according to him, this was never about a check. It was about being seen, being heard, and being acknowledged. But let's be real, not everyone's buying that. Critics say Rymir's been dragging Jay-Z's name through the mud for years without solid proof. They say he's using the media as leverage, trying to force a settlement or get attention for something bigger. Maybe a book, maybe a documentary. Meanwhile, Jay-Z's legal team has kept their stance clear. They call the whole thing meritless and harassment in the form of litigation. Still, here's the part that keeps people hooked. Despite all the filings, all the back and forth, all the court denials, Jay-Z has never taken a DNA test. Not once. And for a lot of people watching, that's the part they can't ignore. If it's all lies, if Rymir's just chasing clout, then why not just take the test and shut it down forever? The silence has been louder than any denial. Jay-Z, one of the most powerful men in music, a billionaire with global reach, has never once addressed Rymir's claims publicly. Not in an interview, not in a lyric, not even in a side comment. Meanwhile, Rymir's been shouting into the void, demanding the simplest thing possible, a swab, a test, a yes or no. And that silence, it's turned into fuel. People close to Rymir say he's obsessed, but if you ask him, it's not obsession, it's survival. He claims he spent most of his life hearing whispers, side eyes, being told he looks just like Jay-Z, having people tell him to let it go without ever seeing closure. He's talked about growing up with the weight of uncertainty, the kind that eats away at your sense of identity. For him, this isn't about headlines, it's about finally knowing who he is, but the legal system hasn't been kind. After the federal suit was dropped, many thought it was over. What they didn't realize was how carefully Rymir was plotting his next move. He wasn't going back to the same courtrooms with the same paperwork. No, he started gathering interviews, public records, and media attention. If the system wouldn't give him a voice, he was going to make sure the internet did. One of the most controversial pieces in this whole saga is that 2022 injunction from New Jersey. On paper, it sounds normal, a judge deciding enough is enough. But Rymir claims he didn't even know what was happening. According to him, there was no hearing, no notification, no fair shot to defend himself before he was permanently locked out of filing anything related to Jay-Z. That move, he says, was the tipping point. Not only did it stop him in court, but it made him question everything, whether the fight was even fair to begin with. He's since gone public, accusing Jay-Z's legal team of weaponizing the courts. Not just good lawyering, but manipulating loopholes, pulling strings, and flexing influence in ways most people couldn't dream of. Rymir's painted a picture of a legal game where the rules don't apply to billionaires. And while some call him paranoid, others are starting to ask hard questions. Why is someone being barred from asking for a DNA test? Why was he silenced so aggressively? Jay-Z's lawyers haven't minced words in response. They've said point blank that the claims are fiction. They point to the 1994 document naming Robert Graves as Rymir's father. According to them, that should have been the end of it. Case closed. They argue that everything since then, from lawsuits to press interviews, is nothing more than harassment disguised as justice. They've accused Rymir of dragging Jay-Z's name through the media for attention, for leverage, for sympathy. Some have even hinted that the entire crusade is just a pressure tactic to squeeze a settlement out of one of the richest men in America. But here's what complicates the narrative. Rymir swears he's been offered money to shut up. In his words, people connected to Jay-Z have reached out dangling hush money with the expectation that he'll walk away and disappear. And each time, he says no. According to him, he's not for sale. And no amount of cash can buy his silence when what he really wants is the truth. Or at least, that's how he tells it. At the heart of all of this is a hauntingly simple question. Why not take the test? A cheek swab, 5 minutes. The answer could end everything. Either prove the man right or finally prove him wrong. The question keeps circling like a hawk. Is this about identity or attention? Rymir insists he's chasing the truth, but even some of his supporters have started to wonder. Because after 15 years, after all the court cases and media noise, the story hasn't reached a resolution. It's only grown murkier. There's no DNA test, no confirmation, no definitive answer. Just one man's claim versus another man's silence. Still, Rymir hasn't gone quiet. In fact, he's ramping up his efforts in a new direction. Since dropping the federal lawsuit, he's been gathering steam in the court of public opinion. He's requested documents under public records laws. He's hinted at appealing the injunction, and he's floated the idea of launching a new kind of legal case. One that doesn't focus on paternity, but instead on civil rights violations, due process, and potential corruption. Basically, if he can't win the battle head on, he's going to try to tear down the system around it, and the public, they're divided. Some believe this is a man fighting a lonely battle against money and power. They see a son desperate for the kind of closure most people take for granted. But others see a pattern. Missed deadlines, rejected filings, dramatic claims without hard evidence. They point to the timing of media appearances and wonder if it's all calculated. Is Rymir building a platform to tell his story in a documentary? Is a book on the way? Is this the long game? Whichever side you're on, there's no denying the emotional weight of the story. A man believes he's been erased from history, a billionaire refuses to engage, and the whole thing unfolds in a world where reputation is currency. Jay-Z doesn't have to say a word, and that silence alone shapes the narrative. It creates space for speculation, for doubt, for conspiracy, because in a world flooded with receipts, screenshots, and DNA tests on daytime TV, the refusal to take one feels like a statement, even if it isn't meant to be. Jay-Z's team is clearly playing the long game too. They've chosen silence, legal filings, and precision over engagement. No interviews, no rebuttals, just flat-out rejection through the courts. They've called the claims baseless and exhausting. From their perspective, giving attention to the accusations only fuels them. And maybe they're right, because each time the media flares up, Rymir gains another round of visibility, another chance to push the narrative his way. And yet, this isn't just a tabloid story, it touches something deeper, questions about power, truth, and what it means to matter. If you were told your father was one of the most famous men on earth and he never once looked your way, how far would you go for a sliver of acknowledgement? If you were denied every step of the way, would you keep pushing or would you walk away? Rymir's answer is clear. He's not done. He says this isn't about winning a court case, it's about forcing the world to see him. Even if he never gets that DNA test, even if Jay-Z never says a word, he's made himself part of the conversation. He's carved a space in the narrative of one of the most private celebrities alive. Whether you think he's brave or just relentless, one thing's for sure. He's not disappearing quietly. And maybe that's all he ever wanted. To not be ignored, to not be dismissed, to not be just another name buried in court records. Whether or not he's Jay-Z's son, Rymir Satterthwaite has made sure the world knows exactly who he is.